This is the Peugeot 508 Sportswagon, and I've been family testing the GT plug-in hybrid model this week with my crew of 3. Wagons have fallen to the wayside in favour of SUVs lately, but it's models like this that will bring the sexy back. Apples for apples, there's not a lot to compare this to given the interesting engine specs, so we're going to be a little bit cheeky and compare apples to oranges instead. Given this sits at the premium end of the market, this competes against rivals like the Volvo V60, Genesis G70 shooting brake and the Audi A4 wagon. Now it certainly has the good looks, but how does it handle family life? Stay watching. There are only 2 variants for the 508 Sportswagon, and our test vehicle is the top spec model and will cost you $82,915 before on-road costs. With its price tag, that does set it well above its rivals, with only the Audi coming closest at just over $78K. With its premium use of materials and styling, it does earn its position in the luxury level, but what about the features? The interior gets a lot of lovely big ticket items, like the quilted Napa leather trims, sunroof, electric and heated front seats that also feature a massage function. Unfortunately, the back seat does miss out on a few creature comforts, which is a bit of a shame. The full specs are in my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au if you want more info. I love a good looking station wagon, and this is a damn fine specimen with the sporty lines in the body paneling and the sexy rear that looks well proportioned for its long length. I like that it has the classic Peugeot claw signature lights at the back, but the front is quite minimalist. I do like though that it has Fang-like DRLs. The 18-inch alloys and the narrow dark windows add to that sporty vibe, as do the twin exhausts. I really love how this car looks. On the interior, the 10-inch touchscreen multimedia system takes center stage, and the overall look of the dash is quite sleek despite all of the deep cutaways. The steering wheel is in the compact style that Peugeot is well known for, and I like how driver-orientated it makes the cockpit actually feel. Coupled with all the shiny black inserts and the piano keys for the controls, and this is a very schmick looking cabin space. The front row definitely gets the most space, and I feel comfortably tucked in without getting too claustrophobic. But I will note that the footwell lip sits quite high, which ordinarily isn't an issue, but if you don't have a lot of space to swing your door open wide, then you can feel a little bit clumsy getting in and out. The electric seats are very comfortable, and I love having the extendable under thigh support. I do find though that I have to sit a fair way back than I ordinarily would for my driving position just to get my feet into a comfortable position. Having said that, the massage function is definitely the winning feature for me on this, and there's even a cat paw setting, which is just lovely. Storage up front is decent for the class, and I really like the dual opening middle console and this handy utility tray. The charging options are also quite good, with 2 USB-A ports, a wireless charging port and a 12-volt port to choose from. It is a little bit awkward using the USB ports and the charging pad just from where it's located underneath the center console, but it's still handy to have all those options. The multimedia system isn't as easy to use as others that I've sampled. There doesn't seem to be a lot of information that you can actually access or customize, but I do like that it's responsive and that you have built-in satellite navigation as well as wide Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The 12.3-inch digital instrument panel looks gorgeous and has a lot more customizations available, which is great. I also really like in this model that it's keyless entry and that you get dual climate control. The back seat is pretty well cushioned. I have a good amount of headroom, but legroom could definitely be better. I think I'd still be comfortable on a longer journey, so long as I wasn't behind anyone who was very tall. The amenities are good, but for a top spec model, you are lacking in some of the luxury items, namely heated outboard seats and climate control. You'll still enjoy 2 map pockets, 2 USB-A ports, directional air vents, as well as reading lights. You also get a fold-down armrest with 2 shallow cup holders, but they may spill their contents on a sharp turn. My 7-year-old son didn't have the best view because of the high window sills, but he had a great time getting in and out of this car because of the low ground clearance. If you're a bit older, not naming any names, you might get a few groans getting in and out yourself. There are ISOFIX child seat mounts on the outboard seats plus 3 top tethers. 2 seats are definitely going to fit best, and front passenger comfort may be compromised a little bit when a 0 to 4 rearward facing child seat is installed. The boot is a great size at 530 litres, and I like that you have a 60-40 split on this rear row with a ski through port. Just opens up your storage options. The load space is level and you get a tyre repair kit in this, and it's always handy having a power tailgate. The GT PHEV has a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine and an electric motor that sits on the front axle. It's an 8-speed auto transmission and has a combined max power output of 165 kilowatts and 360 newton meters of torque, which means it's got plenty of power for this size car, but it's not a performance wagon because its 0 to 100 kilometer sprint time is 8.3 seconds. This has a Type 2 charging port and a lithium-ion battery with an 11.8 kilowatt-hour capacity. On an 11 kilowatt charging system, expect to see a charge time of around 3.5 hours to get from 0 to 100%. When I plugged it in at home, it took me 6.5 hours. This is an odd car to drive, and the steering around the city kind of makes it feel like you're in a go-kart. You might overcorrect a little bit until you get used to it. On the open road, this really hits its stride. The power is responsive and you have enough in the tank to do overtaking or hills, but even with just a light load, it did feel like there wasn't heaps of power in reserve. The suspension is well padded and you're not going to really notice all the bumps in most roads. But I will note that the cabin can get quite loud at higher speeds with wind and road talkback. I was happily surprised with how great the visibility is in this. I wasn't expecting it because of the narrow windows, but you have really great vision all around. You only start to feel quite small once you end up being next to a big SUV. That being said, the lower profile height does mean that you really hug corners, and this is super fun to take on a winding road. The brakes are very responsive, which is great for when you're in stop-start city traffic, but it can make for a jerky experience when you go to park it. And on that note, because of the funky steering and the responsive brakes, it can take a little moment for you to calibrate your senses on just what the car is actually doing. Once you get used to it, this is quite an easy car to park, but I was really disappointed with the 180-degree view camera system. Compared to its rivals and just where this sits in the spec level, it's pretty rubbish. You can travel up to 55 kilometers in pure electric mode, which just gives people who live in urban environments or who only do short journeys a very economical option, which is great. Under optimal conditions where you're utilizing both the engine and the motor, this has an official fuel consumption cycle of 1.5 litres per 100 kilometres. The 508 has some, but not all of the safety features that I like to see on a family vehicle. I do like though that it has an active bonnet, which means that it lifts up and out of the way to help minimise pedestrian injuries in an accident. The 508 has a maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating from testing done way back in 2018. It only has 6 airbags, which is a bit low for a family vehicle. And I am surprised that in this modern market, and this being a top spec model, that it is missing a few crucial safety features, namely the rear cross traffic alert. If you want more info, the full specs are in my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au. The 508 is covered by a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and the battery is covered by an 8-year or up to 160,000 kilometre warranty. You can pre-purchase either a 3 or 5-year servicing plan, and the 5-year plan costs a flat $2,100 or for an average of $420 per service, which is very reasonable for this class. Servicing intervals are also very good at 12 months or 20,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first. The Peugeot 508 Sportswagon GT plug-in hybrid proves that wagons can be extremely stylish, but looks aren't everything, and this is an expensive option compared to its luxury rivals. It earns its place because of the premium interior, but the safety could definitely be improved upon, and the tech is more confusing than it needs to be. Still, this offers a good alternative for families who are sick of SUVs but still need a little bit extra space. So this gets a 7.1 out of 10 from me. My son didn't rave about this one and did complain about his view this week, so he gives it a 6.5 out of 10. If you're after more details, check out my full review at carsguide.com.au and I'll see you next week.